with the leading names in the subjects of UFOs, abductees, the paranormal, panel discussions, and the very best and brightest of the next generation of writers and researchers. Meanwhile, here on Earth, the show breaking new ground in alternative talk with your intrepid host, veteran investigative writer and researcher, Peter Robbins.
Hello again, and welcome back to Meanwhile Here on Earth on KGRA Digital Broadcasting. If you are listening to the show but would rather be watching it, simply go to YouTube and type in Meanwhile Here on Earth. If you become a KGRA subscriber for a modest monthly fee, you will have access to tens of millions of shows, uncounted hours of programming on UFOs and the paranormal, and a new policy coming down from KGRA. If each one of the hosts on shows like mine now has their own code. Mine, who knows how they arrive at these things, is Peter, P-E-T-E-R. And if and when you subscribe, you type in that code, you get a 25% discount. Yes, you're not hearing things, 25%. I, in turn, will get $1 per month for each subscriber. Yeah.
That's 30% off now.
Stop the presses.
30% off on monthly and annual memberships. And if they get an annual membership, they save more money. So I just wanted to update you on that.
I think you should. Well, there you go, folks. Obviously, if one or two or three of you subscribe, I'm not sure how I'm going to spend all that money. But 6 months or a year from now, if more and more of you subscribe using my code, it will actually help me pay my bills. And that would mean a lot to me. That understood. Before we go to our guest today, and a very special guest it is, like most of you, I've been following the news this past week and watching the fall of the ancient nation of Afghanistan. We all have, I'm sure, fairly strong feelings about what's happened. There's enough blame to go around. 4 presidents, 2 from each party, none of them making perfect decisions. Can cast blame where we want to. But for me, this past week has had a personal edge. The last 4 regional capitals fell this week: Herat, Kandahar, Mazar-i-Sharif, and Jalalabad. Unless you served in Vietnam, probably those are just exotic names for you. For me, they were part of the greatest adventure of my young life, traveling through Afghanistan twice, on my own with a pack on my back, and learning about a part of the world that I could never have even imagined. Back when I visited, it was a very peaceful, democratic monarchy, headed by a king who had been in power since the 1930s. Obviously 99% Muslim population, but very tolerant of other religions. I can't tell you how exciting it was and how gracious many of the people were to me. And this morning, thinking about this and reflecting on the fact that there are an awful lot of people and an awful lot of anguish right now there who don't know what's going to happen with their lives. The Taliban are religious maniacs, and we all know some of their behaviors, especially toward women, especially in the strict, rigid interpretation of their twisted teachings. And this morning, I pulled out of storage something I picked up my very first day in Herat, the westernmost city in Iran, in Afghanistan. And this was my travel map way back in the 1970s in a much more peaceful time. I don't have much else to say about it, except that For most of us, it's an abstract. It's one more place in the world where people are suffering and where the wrong people have assumed power. For those of us that remember it in kinder times, it's a human tragedy on a different level. On another subject completely. Coming up between August 18th and August 22nd is a very special event in the world of UFO studies, the Making Contact Convergence. It will be an online virtual event, days running, where you can interface with some of the most distinguished and knowledgeable people in the work. All the information you need is at makingcontact.com. And check it out. It's something, if you can join it, when could be a better time in terms of where UFO studies are right now and its growing traction in the public sector. So, without further ado, my guest today. Paul Jeffrey Davids is the man behind one of the greatest classic movies of UFO lore. In 1994, the Showtime film Roswell, also known as Roswell, the UFO Cover-Up, was released to much fanfare. Paul was executive producer and co-writer of the story, along with Donald J. Schmidt. He fought for years to get the film made in spite of many rejections, but he never gave up and eventually found enormous success with the project. It stars Kyle MacLachlan of Twin Peaks fame, singer-actor Dwight Yoakam, and the great actor Martin Sheen. The film Roswell was nominated for a Golden Globe Award for Best Television Motion Picture. Paul's motivation to make the film came from daylight close-range flying saucer sighting he had with two of his children in 1987. And I'm just going to parenthetically insert here, I have no idea of how many hundreds of people have shared their accounts with me over the past 40-odd years. Paul's is up there in the top three, and I will never forget it. Well, as much as him. Paul quickly emerged as one of the foremost personalities in ufology. He has been a speaker at dozens of conferences, including the MUFON International Symposium. He has even chosen to be the presenter to the White Sands Missile Range Pioneers. The founders of the UFO rocketry and space programs invited him to speak about UFOs and Roswell on the occasion of their 50th anniversary. Paul's career has never been limited to ufology. He is a graduate of Princeton University. He was one of the first full scholarship students at the American Film Institute for Advanced Film Studies. He was a segment producer for attorney F. Lee Bailey's show Lie Detector, and was also the production coordinator for Marvel Comics productions on almost all of the animated Transformers shows. His credits appear on 79 episodes, and he wrote scripts for several of them as well. He has now produced and directed 10 feature films, mainly for TV, some of them on controversial and very challenging topics. I agree with that. His films include Jesus in India, The Life and Death Project, Timothy Leary's Dead, Marilyn Monroe Declassified, The Sci-Fi Boys, which won many awards, and as an accomplished artist who paints in oils, Paul also produced and directed a film about Vincent van Gogh called Starry Night and The Artist and the Shaman. There are now 7 beautiful books of the art of Paul Jeffrey Davids. His paintings include the California coast, Mexico, New York, Paris, the southwest of the United States, and I could go on. More, Paul and his wife, extraordinary in her own right, Hollis, wrote 6 of the Star Wars sequel books for Lucasfilm. He has co-authored other notable books, such as An Atheist in Heaven, The Ultimate Evidence for Life After Death, and also Blowing America's Mind, which is about the CIA's MK Ultra mind control project, LSD research, and the involvement of Princeton University. He also has some terrific projects for children. On Amazon.Prime, you can find his 12 episodes of the puppet programs called The Grand Kingdom of Cookie Land. And he also has a new series of 4 illustrated adventure books for young readers called The Gimwits. After living for the past half century in Los Angeles, Paul and his wife Hollis recently moved to a beautiful Mediterranean-style estate in Sedona, Arizona, where he is coming to us from. Paul Jeffrey Davids, welcome to Meanwhile Here on Earth.
Thank you. It's good to be back on Earth.
Amen. You guys pretty much settled in the new hacienda?
We are. Yeah, we're really loving it. We've loved Sedona for the last 30 years we've been coming here. And finally decided to trade LA for Sedona.
So you've consolidated everything, the house in Big Bear?
The house in Big Bear, it gets rented. It's up there. You were there, a visitor. It still has all those paintings up that you admired so much.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. But
Good.
Unfortunately, we won't be getting to Big Bear as much as we
Well, in the interest of full disclosure, you and Hollis were such gracious hosts when I visited you in Los Angeles and Big Bear. And wasn't it extraordinary to get snowed in for the first time in just about recorded history and make our way back down to Los Angeles successfully?
You can count on Big Bear for a lot of snow in the winter, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And Peter, you and I have known each other for so many years now through ufology.
We have. And all the more reason it's such a pleasure to have you on the show, Paul. For me, you are something of a Renaissance man. You have had a hand in so many areas. And I was mentioning to you before we went on the air, there is a special place in my heart for people who tend to vaporize stereotypes. And when we first met, which I think was at one of the Omega conferences in North Haven, Connecticut in the early 90s, all I knew was that, you were a Hollywood guy and you'd worked on this film, the Roswell film, but really nothing else. And it wasn't until we really connected at the first of Stephen Bassett's X conferences. And I had a flight leaving late Sunday. You asked me if I had any time, want to take a ride. And you explained you had grown up in the area, and we headed out to a churchyard where we paid our respects at the graves of F. Scott Fitzgerald and Zelda Fitzgerald. And that had been a passion of yours while you were at Princeton. And I thought, this guy is interesting. I think I will stick with this friendship. So we're going to try to cover a lot of ground today. And let's begin with the beginning. Where were you born?
I was born in Washington, D.C. And early years of my life, I lived in Fairfax, Virginia, and then in Washington, D.C. And then when I was around 7, I think it was, my family moved to Garrett Park, Maryland. Beautiful little community. It was Garrett Park Estates. It was the newer part of Garrett Park, which has a lot of old Victorian style houses. Very, very ancient community. And so I traced my roots to Garrett Park, and then my family moved to Bethesda, Maryland. Much more urban now than it was back in the day. And then I left Maryland to be a student at Princeton. But my father was very wedded to staying in the Washington area because he was a full professor at Georgetown University in the School of Foreign Service.
Got it. And tell us a little about your mom.
My mother taught 5th grade for her whole career. And she was very supportive of most of my creative endeavors, but not all of them. I could say she did not want me to end up as a Hollywood filmmaker. As a matter of fact, when I said I wasn't going to medical school after having finished all the requirements,
all the
testing, and I think I was even accepted at the first of the medical schools I had applied to, and I changed my mind. And the movie Yellow Submarine had something to do with that, but we'll get back to that. My mother famously called up an aunt, her sister, that she was closest to and said, Paul is throwing his life away. She was devastated.
And look at the wreck that,
or a doctor, even a psychiatrist, which was part of what I was thinking about for a while I was insane.
And look at the tragic mess you've made of your life.
Tragic.
A lot of boys of our era got caught up in science fiction and monsters. It's in our DNA growing up in America at that time.
Oh, yeah.
Famous Monsters magazine was, it was one of the holy grails of a much more innocent childhood, like Mad Magazine, but they were two distinct areas. Do you remember?
I'll interrupt and say that though they were distinct, I do have a complete collection of both Mad.
Whoa.
Monsters. Mad going back to number 1.
That's
first
awesome.
23 issues being the 10-cent comic books, and then number 24 being the first magazine. And my childhood visits to the Mad offices in New York and getting my picture taken with Al Feldstein. And then, of course, there was Famous Monsters. Now, Famous Monsters magazine, unfortunately, I wasn't officially allowed to read it when I was a kid, you see.
Well, it'll poison your mind.
I think it did. This is the cover of issue number 35, which features me and the childhood movies that I was making, because at that point, I was one of the winners in their amateur movie making contest. And
we're about to get to that. Do you remember if there was a movie that you saw when you were a boy?
Oh, this is easy.
Or was it just, science fiction movies in general that galvanized you and made you want to start making movies then and there, as opposed to waiting till you were a grown-up of some sort?
Meet this guy.
Whoa.
This is from the Seventh Voyage of Sinbad.
Mr. Ray Harryhausen, may he live forever in our memories.
Yes. Well, the Seventh Voyage of Sinbad absolutely blew me away.
Yeah.
And I was always interested in trick photography and special effects. But, we didn't have computer effects in those days. And we had invented by the seat of your pants special effects. As a matter of fact, a good friend of mine, Mark D. Wolf, has just published a wonderful book called Smoke and Mirrors, Special Effects BC, meaning before computers.
Terrific.
And he goes into how all of the effects were done. Heavy use in those days of blue screen, rear projection, stop motion animation.
Sure.
Swayed me, Ray Harryhausen, the expert in that. And I fell in love with movie making. I said I wasn't allowed to read Famous Monsters, but my best friend, Jeff Tinsley, was not only allowed to read them, but he was able to collect them all. His parents didn't. As a matter of fact, his father would sneak us off to these forbidden double features on Saturday afternoon. And sometimes I'd have up a story about what movie I saw or where I really was, because my parents really didn't much approve of monster movies.
So in other words, Jeff Tinsley's father is responsible for your blowing your whole career in medicine.
He really, his father, Maxwell Tinsley, I love Jeff's parents. They were like second parents to me. He had a wonderful house in Old Garrett Park. And Jeff and I were together every afternoon after school. And then when we got 8mm movie cameras, we were able to begin making our own.
Now, that was my next question.
But his father was absolutely instrumental, because the editor of Famous Monsters magazine, Forrest J. Ackerman, we read about him in his magazine and this wonderful house he had in Hollywood called the Acker Mansion that was filled with the actual original,
probably the greatest collection of sci-fi memorabilia in the world.
Here's the Emir from 20 Million Miles to Earth. You like creatures from outer space? Here is one of the best. So when Forrest J. Ackerman, I think it was 1963, took a 3,000-mile trip across the country to meet the fans of the magazine. And he ended up at the World Science Fiction Convention at the Statler Hilton Hotel in Washington, D.C. And Jeff's father, Maxwell, read about this, that Forrest Ackerman was going to be there. And he said, I have to take you boys down to meet this man.
Oh.
And that was absolutely a totally pivotal day in my life. And I mean, Jeff went on to have a very wonderful, distinguished career, mainly in still photography, whereas I stuck with the movies.
Yeah.
He became the one of the main photographers for the Smithsonian Museum of American History.
Wow.
And every inauguration, Jeff was up there on the podium, the closest guy to the presidents being sworn in, to take pictures of them for the Smithsonian. So
Wonderful.
we both followed our dreams in different ways, but his father getting us to meet Fari Ackerman.
Yeah.
Ackerman had a profound influence on my life, my thinking, my interests. I got to meet him that day and told him about the amateur 8mm films I was making, stop motion with dinosaurs and dragons, very much after his own heart. And he said, well, you know what? I'm going to be here tomorrow morning too, Sunday morning. And if you could bring a projector and bring your movies, we'll set up a screen here in the conference room.
Oh my God.
Well, and I think there's a lot of fans that'd like to see your movies. He said, and I'd like to see them.
Wow.
But Jeff, whose parents were quite religious, had to get a special dispensation not to go to church that Sunday. And we showed the movies to Fari Ackerman and his publisher, James Warren.
Wow.
And then they're after us to provide stills from our movies to publish in their magazine. Well,
and let's take a look at some of those stills.
14 years old. This is me as Gulliver, picking up one of my friends, Robin Wenck.
How did you do this special effect? I know.
Well, this is called forced perspective. I'm close to the camera. Rob is just standing on the street, but his back is to us, and he's looking up as though he were looking at me. He can't see me because I
get it.
In front of him.
I'm buying it. Either that, or you found a very small person, and you're not telling us about it.
Actually, I had to omit that part because it was security classified about the poor people. But there you go. And this is a sea serpent I built called Glarf.
Wow.
And that, that's a model building right beside him. But in the far background, that's a rear screen projected industrial area.
Ooh.
And I used a technique that Ray Harryhausen did where I would advance one frame at a time and move the sea serpent. And in the background, I'd advance one frame at a time. So you'd see movement behind it. And that car, actually, I took some Scotch tape and I pasted it to the rear screen, and one frame at a time, spinning down. And, I knew something about physics and acceleration of falling objects. So I made it fall as it should. So it looked like it was really a falling car. I had a lot of fun with those movies.
Damn.
8mm. This one, actually, I refilmed in 16mm when I applied to the American Film Institute.
Oh. And we have the creature in all its glory here. This
is a dragon.
That's a nasty looking dragon.
Yep, modeled after the one from Seventh Voyage of Sinbad. It was fire breathing. We held up a torch behind it and made it look like it was burning up the leaves of a tree. This
awesome.
We made for our amateur movie entry into Famous Monsters contest for a film called Siegfried Saves Metropolis.
Nice.
And that's based on two Fritz Lang films, Siegfried and Metropolis. And Fari Ackerman wrote the script. And
wow.
I don't know, I still have it. It's about a 15-page script. And for $4, you could fill out an application and send away, and he mailed you the script. And then eventually you had to send the movie that you made off to Hollywood for it to be reviewed.
Talk about bragging rights. Oh, no.
This is
sad. Whose home is that?
Sixth grader. This is what the houses looked like in the part of Garrett Park where I lived. Brick houses, very suburban. And we had a Tyrannosaurus there roaming the neighborhood. Years before Jurassic Park. That's actually a wax, non-movable dinosaur.
Hmm.
And my friend Grant Bishop with the spear is, many feet in the background.
Yeah.
Spear, as though it was going to hit this dinosaur in the throat. This is what we did. We started making these as still pictures when we were in 5th grade. All right. Jeff Tinsley and I had a business card, special effects, our specialty, 5th graders, right? We would make little contact prints of these or little enlargements of these pictures. And for a nickel, or maybe it was a dime, you could buy 2 of them with a little piece of bubble gum. We were
Awesome.
We were entrepreneurs, at
Good
that.
business head even back then.
Yeah.
I hope that you kept tax records, Paul.
Yeah.
And let's move on.
Oh, this is called Man Beast, another one of our early creations.
It's a nasty looking critter.
Well, the interior of this was an artist's mannequin, movable mannequin.
Oh, sure.
Sure. But, I put the skin over it, using latex, masking tape, artificial hair.
A la King Kong.
Yep.
And now
childhood version. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is number 27 of Famous Monsters. This is the first one that published what I was doing with Jeff Tinsley. This came out after I met Forrest J. Ackerman at the Statler Hilton, and his publisher, James Warren, had written to me and asked for photos and said he would send them to Bari in California. Now they published them. So, we didn't have the internet. This was really being famous back in those days. I think 1963.
Were you able to finally go to your parents and say, I am published. I am a published young filmmaker, and what?
They began to, accept that, this was, a very creative thing. What my mother objected to was the gore, when we would do a horror movie. All right. She didn't approve of that. But this was.
Here you are in the upper left of the page 2. You have made it into print.
Yep. As Gulliver, and Jeff is spearing our man beast. And
big time.
And they had 2 whole pages about all these amateur movies we were making. The movies were like 3 minutes each. That's how long a spool of 8mm was. But we didn't have video. We didn't have sound. We were working with cameras that were designed for family home movies, except I was able to secure one that had special features. For example, you could do single frame with the one that I had. And then you could do stop motion animation. And it also had backwind. And then you could do what they call a stationary mat. And this is a stationary mat. Let me explain. The top half of that picture, if you go back, can you go back to that one? Yeah, the top half, when that's filmed, we put a black piece of felt on the bottom with a straight edge. And then we rewind it in the camera and we put the black felt on the top. And now we film the bottom to make it look like they are behind those buildings.
Totally.
It's 2 separate pieces of photography. So
I wouldn't, this is great.
I want to jump ahead, Peter, and say that though I never made my career as a special effects cinematographer, which is what I thought I most wanted to be when I was a kid, my son, Scott Michael Davids, you can look him up on IMDb. He not only became a professional Hollywood editor who worked on editing films such as Borat and Bruno for Sacha Baron Cohen, but he set up his own special effects company called Level 256. And on IMDb, you'll see my son has credit as digital effects supervisor on over 40 major budget Hollywood movies. You've heard of all of the movies. He was the digital effects supervisor on most of the major comedies that came out over about a 10 to 15 year period.
Amazing.
And he doesn't do it anymore. He's on to other things, but I was very proud of him. I
guess
in the digital world,
Yeah.
what I was attempting to do back in the days of, of clay and tape and rubber bands.
Once again, this is
Yes.
from another magazine, or this is
This
not
is
Famous Monsters.
this is it's a full page in the Washington Evening Star.
Whoa.
Back in those days, that was the other main Washington newspaper other than the Washington Post. And we were given a full page in the teen section where they talked Making Monsters Grow. They talked about the movies that I was making with my friends. And I want to say, I think the writer, a lady named Fifi Gorska, at that time, she was aware that George Pal's great Hollywood producer, George Pal, War of the Worlds, The Time Machine, he had a major feature coming out in downtown Washington in Cinerama, which in those days was a 3-screen process, very, very widescreen effect. That movie was called The Wonderful World of the Brothers Grimm. It had it had his stop motion puppetoons. And she gave me and Jeff and for our families free tickets to go to the Washington, D.C. premiere of The Wonderful World of the Brothers Grimm, as our prize for giving them the exclusive story on our childhood movies for the teen page. So eventually, I not only became very close with Forrest J. Ackerman, but in Hollywood, I got to know and meet and work with George Pal.
I know.
He was, this is me with Fari Ackerman, by the way, at Fari's home. I think I was showing him there a script for, it might have been one of the Transformers scripts that I had written. But so yeah, I got to meet and work with a number of, as mentors, a number of those that I just admired so much as a kid, who I just never expected that this would happen to me.
Paul, let's go back a bit. Famous Monsters, they have this contest, and I noticed $1,000 prize. Do I remember correctly that you won that contest?
We were actually not the first or second prize winners.
Okay.
We were very happy to get honorable mention, but we got more publicity and more photos in the magazine of our movies than actually the main winners did. So that was good enough. And the letter that Fari Ackerman sent me telling me that I was a winner in it, the letter from, he loved puns. So it was from Hollywood, California. And he wrote Horrorwood, California, as in Boris Karloff, who played Frankenstein. And he addressed it to master movie maker Paul Davids.
Whoa.
I'm 15 years old. I'm getting a letter from one of my idols, the editor of Famous Monsters magazine in Hollywood. I'm 15.
What a sweetheart. What a
and
great
he's
guy.
calling me a master movie. You think this went to my head? My head's a little smaller now than it was that day.
Some people, they understand in this life the best way, and I mean that in the most noble way I can, the best way to accumulate power is to give power to people, not to scare them, not to boss them around, not to threaten them. He struck me as one of those people. He was a giver. And many years after the time you're talking about, you took me to his, I think, 88th birthday party, which was held in, I think it was, whether it was Chinese or...
Probably at that point, it was the Chinese restaurant. Later, it was a Thai restaurant.
And what were there, 200 people there? I mean, it was a huge crowd. Many of them, the co-star of this film from 1956, they were this wonderful collection of people who all revered him, loved him. And even the few minutes that I got to spend with him, his attention was on me. And that, it's something I try to do with people. It's one of the highest forms of just honoring them for who they are. But he was still full of life. He gave a great thank you speech. We all had a great time together, and I'll never forget it. He signed a poster for me. So because of your contact with him, I have these memories as well. How old were you when you first got out to Los Angeles and got to see him on his own stamping ground?
Well, I graduated Princeton in 1969. I'm certainly betraying my age here. I hope I don't look my age. I don't feel my age, but I'm a senior citizen now. But I met him, I guess I would have been 22 when I first went to his house in LA. He was one of the first people I visited when I came out. By the way, to know Fari, you have to appreciate his love of puns and jokes filled with puns. They just gushed out of him. I mean, did you hear the one about the cross-eyed teacher?
No.
She couldn't control her pupils. Did you hear about the restaurant that they built up on the moon?
No.
Great food, but no atmosphere. Peter, did you hear what Kraft Foods is doing? Kraft Foods is starting a business in the Holy Land. As a matter of fact, they're releasing a new product called Cheeses of Nazareth. So there you go. Fari was all puns all the time. And when James Warren asked him to come up with the first issue, he stood opposite Fari and he held up a sign that said, "I'm a 10-year-old boy, Fari, make me laugh." And that was it. It was aimed toward 10-year-old boys, and that's about when I first fell in love with it. And
oh my God!
And it wasn't just me who was so influenced in this way. I made a film years later in 2006 called The Sci-Fi Boys.
Yes, and we're going to get to that.
Very well-known film, Universal, distributed all around the world.
Yeah.
And at the same time that King Kong came out from Peter Jackson, and Peter Jackson with this movie, The Sci-Fi Boys. But the point of The Sci-Fi Boys was to show the history of special effects, but through the eyes of all the people who loved famous monsters when they were kids and made their own monster movies when they were kids.
Which included Jackson, which included Spielberg.
All the top professionals in the world of science fiction and fantasy.
I love that documentary. It's one of my favorites, and I recommend it to anybody. It's joyous, and it's fascinating.
And Peter, I was able to collect a lot of the childhood films made by a lot of the famous people who grew up to be very famous directors or special effects people, like Dennis Muren, who was head of effects at Industrial Light and Magic. He started on Famous Monsters. He has at least now 10 Academy Awards. He was very responsible for the digital revolution when Jurassic Park was made. And Rick Baker, who is a master of special makeup effects and building physical monsters of any size. He now has about 10 Academy Awards. Well, they helped me with the Sci-Fi Boys film, along with many others. John Landis did, and it's a long list.
Yeah,
but that was later. I was trying to recapture, my youth in a way, in doing that and showing how it all came about. It starts with having an unusual, intense interest, and not letting adults discourage you from it.
At a certain point, also at an early age, you developed another passion for magic. What was it that set you on that course? Because I have seen you do your thing on the stage and close up, and I become the 10-year-old boy. It's like, wait, stop. How did you do that? Do it again. And I'm lost.
We never do it again, Peter. We never do it again. But I started my
interest. How did that start?
In magic, about the time that I was 10 also, because special effects is movie magic.
Yeah.
And sleight of hand magic is close up in person magic, and I did a lot of that. I did a mental telepathy routine when I was in junior high school, and I met some professional magicians. And then when I came to Hollywood, I was introduced to the Magic Castle. The Magic Castle, this great Victorian building on a hill in Hollywood that has multiple showrooms where professional magicians perform all the time, every week. And there's always rotating shows. And I joined. I became a member of the Academy of Magical Arts. And I joined there in the mid-1980s when I was working for Marvel on the Transformers show. And I've been a member ever since. Oh, that's me in my magic getup. Nice.
Now, on one magical night, you took me to spend the evening at the Magic Castle.
There it is.
Once again, I reverted to being a kid. We had a wonderful dinner there. I remember, we'd be walking down a hallway and a fellow magician would stop you and say, Paul, I'll just run this by you. What do you think of this? And he'd do the trick and you'd tell him what you thought. And I'm standing there with my jaw dropped. And we had a wonderful dinner. And then there, I think, are 3 theaters there of different sizes, more and more intimate. And we saw shows in each one.
Yes, we have the close-up gallery.
Yes.
About 20 people there, plus maybe about 10 standing. Then we have the parlor of prestidigitation. Prestidigitation. I can even say it in French. Prestidigitation. And there's about 50 to 60 people watching.
Yeah.
And then we have the Palace of Mystery, which I think is between 100 and 120 people. So different size stages and different types of magic in each room.
And everyone was terrific. I'm still, I think about that night and the power to persuade somebody that you've just done something that can't be done, except that, and we all know these are skills you develop. It's magic in the eyes of a child or a childlike adult at a certain moment, but these are hard-fought won skills. I have seen you pull out a deck of cards with people around, and all of a sudden, everything else stops.
Have you seen where I pass out a book and I tell people to open it to any page?
I'd have seen that one.
Think of, you haven't seen this. Think of any.
And what's the page number? And
any word on the page, and I'll then pass the book to the next person. The next person. I'll have 5 people at once go to random pages and think of a word, and I'll tell each one what word they chose and were thinking.
Give me a break.
Yeah. But I will tell you one of my favorite illusions, and I did this at the UFO Mega Conference.
Okay.
Just before COVID set in. That last big conference before COVID began to ruin everything, they gave me an hour to perform for the ufologists. It was the only non-ufological event at the conference. And one of my favorite ones is I have this table. You see, and I put a cloth over the table, and I ask the audience who thinks that they have the power of psychokinesis, which is the mental ability to move objects just with your mind. So I pick somebody from the audience. A girl comes up, and I say, "We're going to test your powers of psychokinesis. I want you to hold 2 of the ends of this cloth. I'll hold the other 2 ends, and I want you to concentrate and make this table rise into the air. Tell it to rise. Say, table, rise." So she does that, nothing happens, right? I say, you really do have psychokinetic ability? Try a little harder. Table, rise. Nothing happens, right? So I get very disappointed and I look away from her. So I'm not looking at her or the table anymore. I'm looking at the audience and I'm saying, how does it happen that I choose somebody, they say they have this ability. Obviously, I chose the wrong person. She can't do it. She has no ability. And while I'm haranguing her like this, the table is rising. And everybody is saying, look, it's rising, it's growing. And I'm not listening to them. I'm just saying, look, I made a mistake. I chose the wrong person. It was so much fun. I love that.
Am I correct in interpreting this photo of a young Paul Davids on the left?
Yes. I was in Quebec. I took a camping trip to Quebec, and magic is an international language, and I speak French pretty well. And I would do street magic for the kids. Look at their wall. They would gather around me. It was so much. It was just, it was
fun.
And I was doing it in French too.
Jumping ahead here, that is Mr. Ray Harryhausen.
It is.
Between you and Forry.
Yes, the great Ray Harryhausen is one of the greatest masters of cinema who ever lived, who unfortunately died a few years ago at age 92. Forry also died at age 92. And this was in 1986 when Forry invited Hollis, my wife, and I over for dinner at the Ackermansion. Because he said, guess who's here? I'd like you to meet. Now, Ray Harryhausen is here with his wife, Diana. And he also invited George Pal's widow, Joka.
No.
And there we were. And I had just finished a book that had illustrations made by Mark D. Wolf, who did that wonderful book. I told you, go check out his book called Smoke and Mirrors, Special Effects BC, before computers. But at any rate, he did the photo illustrations for the first book that my wife and I wrote and had published called The Fires of Pele, Mark Twain's legendary lost journal. And this was a book, 1986, about Mark Twain's adventures in Hawaii. He did go to Hawaii, but we took a fantasy approach and we said, what if he met up with the fantasy gods and goddesses of Hawaiian mythology and the Menehunes, the little people, the legendary leprechaun-like people of the island of Kauai. So we created a whole story as told by Mark Twain and said that this is Mark Twain's legendary lost journal, that we had found, right? One reviewer from the Midwest said, congratulations on finding Mark Twain's lost journal. It was so wonderful. It was Mark Twain at his best. He didn't realize that we wrote it, that it was all, we're pulling everybody's leg. He thought that it was by Mark Twain. Of course, we studied Twain's style a lot.
What
all
fun.
his favorite expressions we interwove, to make that. And I so wanted that to be a major feature film. It was like The Seventh Voyage of Sinbad. I tried for years to get it made. And believe me, in this business, you suffer so much rejection. You have 10 projects thrown down for every one that eventually succeeds or gets made, but doesn't succeed. It's a business of rejection, and you have to have really thick skin to be able to endure it. Well, that one never got made. The one I prepared after that on The Fountain of Youth with Ponce de Leon on an adventure in the days of Columbus, meeting the legendary monsters of the New World, and that one didn't get made. And about that time, I was getting very discouraged. I had a friend from the AFI who posed as a Viking for the photos I did for The Fountain of Youth. Gerald Muller. And he had been unemployed for years after studying at the American Film Institute, but he had finally been hired by Marvel Productions to work on a show I'd never heard of, about some toys I'd never heard of, called The Transformers. And one day, about a couple months after I filmed Gerald as my Viking for the story, he called me up and he said, Paul, are you working? Am I working? Of course not. Who's working? There's a lot of unemployment in this business while you're trying to be a cinematic genius. He said, let me tell you, I'm over at Marvel, and I'm the production coordinator on this show called The Transformers, and they're making a Transformers movie now. And they're moving me over onto the movie. So my boss from Korea, Nelson Shin, has said, Gerald, who should I replace you with? You're unreplaceable, but Who do you know? And he suggested me.
Ah.
So I went in for an interview to meet Nelson Shin. I got hired after a half an hour conversation. He actually, I was working at the time, but not doing what I was working the film distribution branch for Columbia Pictures out of Beverly Hills. I wasn't cut out for that work. So I left that job, and 2 hours after meeting Nelson Shin, I started working at Marvel on the Transformers. I had to learn every character. They had shows in production. I had to learn, every script, every show, what was the dialogue, where was each show in its state of development. Because when you're a production coordinator, on a TV show, you're the guy who's on top of where everything stands on every episode that's in production. They don't just work on one at once. They're working on 8 at once, and maybe one of them has just had the script approved, and another one just had the storyboard finished, and another one, they just did the voice recording, and now a producer is putting all the voice information into the storyboard, and the artists on staff are finishing up designs for the new characters. What will their colors be? How will they look? Get it approved by Hasbro that makes the toys.
Yeah.
Flip it off to some of our shows were done at Toei in Japan, animation company, major company there. Some were done in the Philippines, and a lot of them were done at a company that my boss, Nelson Shin, owned called ACOM in South Korea. So Gerald was always going back and forth to South Korea working on the feature, and I was, at Marvel. And someone else who was at Marvel at that time was a guy you may have heard of named Stan Lee.
Oh, my.
Stan Lee, I got to know Stan Lee then. He actually wrote the preface for our Fires of Pele book. Corey Ackerman wrote the forward. But I want to tell you a story about Stan Lee. I know we want to go back and fill in some things because I've skipped.
Please. It'll take us. This is great.
I skipped a lot of stuff. But skipped Cornell Wilde and my writing phase and working for the great agent Paul Kohner. I did a lot of things along the way. But Stan Lee had tried to get together the deal for a movie for Spider-Man several times, and every time the deal had collapsed. And I got a message to come over to Stan Lee's office after work for his failure party celebration beer bash. Now, what was the failure? His latest deal that he had thought was going to work out for Spider-Man had just fallen through. So he made a special announcement at that party where we all had a beer. He said, you know what? I've been beaten over the head with this enough. I can announce now Spider-Man will never be a film. I'm done.
Oh, no.
We're done. Not even try anymore. Now, this was before digital, you understand.
Yeah.
Digital is what really made it possible and made it possible for a lot of the movies that we love now to happen. Computers hadn't happened yet. So he kept getting turned down. He was demoralized.
How ironic.
And he's the guy that invented, all those characters, Iron Man, the Avengers. It wasn't just Spider-Man.
Oh, totally.
All the Marvel things came from the mind of Stan Lee. It was incredible.
Yep.
So there you go.
And to think that that character that, has inspired so many kids and so many adults and generated, I'm sure, billions of dollars in revenue.
Yeah.
Almost didn't make it to the screen.
They're
but for fortune.
But you see, most of the major projects have been rejected again and again and again and again. And I want to go back in time because I introduced you to my love of the great producer, George Pal. He was George Lucas before there was a George Lucas. Back in the 50s.
I think for some of our audience is not aware of the impact that he still generates in a way.
Yeah, he was massive. He did a Destination Moon, big hit. It showed how we would get to the moon 20 years later. We did. I think it came out in 1949 or 1950.
Yeah.
He did When Worlds Collide. He did
It's a great movie. It's still a great sci-fi movie.
And he did The Conquest of Space, which was the first one to show a space station and how that would be used to help us get to Mars.
Yeah.
And then he did The War of the Worlds. Absolutely magnificent.
A wonderful film.
Massively wonderful film today.
Yeah.
And then he went on to do the children's film, Tom Thumb. I said Wonderful World of Brothers Grimm. And I think he made about close to 15 feature films. And he did all these puppetoons of stop motion animation. He was one of the first people to employ Ray Harryhausen in stop motion. So when I was accepted after Princeton to study at the American Film Institute Center for Advanced Film Studies. Today they call it the Center for Advanced Film and Television Studies. But in those days, it was Center for Advanced Film Studies. It was in this great mansion in Beverly Hills called the Doheny Mansion. Beverly Hills owned the mansion, and they leased it to the American Film Institute for $1 a year for a 10-year lease. And they turned it into the most magnificent school, educational center for young filmmakers. They did a talent search. I was swept up in that talent search. I was pulled in because I was a kid who made monster movies, and because F. Scott Fitzgerald inspired me to write short stories, and I wrote stories that one story won the F. Scott Fitzgerald Award at Princeton.
Ironic.
And many other stories, and there was a Czechoslovakian dean of the school there, AFI, who loved my writing, and he loved my. I did some animated cartoons. I sent them too, and then I did the Glarf the Sea Serpent. I sent them. And he said, you remind me of Gogol. And
Paul, we're going to have to hold that thought right there because we are about to go to break. This is Peter Robbins with my special guest, Paul Jeffrey Davids, on Meanwhile Here on Earth, and we will see you in about 3 minutes.
Hey members, the new KGRA-DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA-DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA-DB.
Welcome to the new KGRA digital broadcasting website, thekgradb.com. Here you'll find great new content, including the KGRA Classics, great shows from our archives. You'll be able to see the show times and information so you can see what show is currently on air. The on-air live button, so just go to this section and you'll be able to hear the show live with exceptional sound quality. We also have the Vault section. Make sure to subscribe to get access to great content and special features. We have the make content for our latest news and events, so make sure to sign up and you can be part of our forum. So make sure to check out the new KGRA digital broadcasting website, thekgradb.com. We look forward to seeing you there, and we hope that you enjoy the new website.
I don't want to talk about it.
I don't want to talk about it.
Families don't have to talk about everything, but they should talk about how to plan for an emergency. Get tips and resources to make your family's emergency plan.
And welcome back. And what we are now going to do is shift gears. Paul, if you want to complete your thoughts about the Film Institute, please do, because we are going to then go to the project that for many of our viewers is what put you on the map. And for me, one of the most singular, unique, and very important contributions to UFO and film. But the Institute you were talking about, was he the dean or the head of the school?
Yeah, Frank Daniel and George Stevens Jr. made the decision that I would be invited to have a full scholarship at the school the first year. And while I was there, they said, "Who do you want to meet?" You know, all of Hollywood is at our gates here. I said,
"Whoa,
George Pal." We spent a week looking at George Pal's movies. I have here the Flying Saucer.
Oh,
and and George came and he saw the student film that I made there called Examination, and he was impressed. And after I graduated at the AFI, George called me up one day and said, "Paul, have you heard of a book called The Hobbit?" And I got asked to write a treatment for George Pal for The Hobbit. He wanted to make it as a feature. Now, this was, George died in 1980. So this was in the late 1970s. And it got turned. He loved the treatment, by the way. Hollis wrote it with me, and it got turned down at every major studio. I mean, the reaction was, "George, what is a hobbit? What does Frodo lives mean? Who cares about this? George, you're a little off your rocker at this point. Maybe you're getting a little too old for this business." They all turned him down. We were crushed because I spent about a year or two there just waiting every day for when we were going to get the word from 20th Century Fox that they were moving ahead with The Hobbit. So how many decades later?
Oh my gosh!
Was it? I mean, it was like 35 years later. Peter Jackson makes first. He does The Lord of the Rings, then he makes The Hobbit.
You're ahead of your time.
Got to meet him when he made King Kong, and he loved my first version of the Sci-Fi Boys, and he agreed to sort of be a narrator host of it. And so he helped me with it, and I showed him all the letters from George Pal and all the rejection letters that we had on The Hobbit 35 years before he made it. So, life takes some interesting turns. Before we change to the new subject, I just want to show you two other little pieces of memorabilia.
Please.
This is my Ray Harryhausen cup. It's signed by him. No. From the night that his film Earth versus the Flying Saucers was shown at the Vista Theater in Hollywood, and he had his handprints.
I'd love to see that on the big screen.
Earth versus the Flying Saucers, Ray Harryhausen, a masterpiece based on the book of Major Donald Kehoe. And then one other thing I want to show you is this is a statue of Forrest J. Ackerman.
Oh.
Holding famous monsters of filmland. And this came out after his death. A man named Philip Kim had acquired the rights to Famous Monsters, which had been not published for a number of years, and he resurrected it. I think he did a very wonderful job with it and provided a lot of great new information to fans. It didn't have the humor and the puns, that Fari brought to it. It was a kind of a different approach.
Yeah.
But he arranged to have this statue made of Fari. So
it's great.
There you go.
Paul, probably like I do, there's an assumption that a lot of people have that if you're into UFOs, then of course you're a sci-fi fan. Or if you're a sci-fi fan, of course you're interested in UFOs. Very often, nothing could be further from the truth. Most hardcore science fiction fans I've met who find out what I do have expressed to me more often than not in a kind way, "Am I kidding? I mean, we all know that's make believe. At least we're into real make believe, but you actually believe this stuff. Has that been your experience, or do you find that there's?
I have no choice but to believe it. I've been confronted.
Oh no,
with
I don't mean you. I mean in general for you, right?
Yeah, Isaac Asimov, who believes that there must be in this vast universe of ours, but doesn't believe in flying skeptic. Ray Bradbury didn't believe in flying saucers. I want to interject here that the day that Ray Harryhausen got his star on Hollywood Boulevard, afterwards I was invited to a lunch with Ray Harryhausen, and Ray Bradbury was sitting next to me. And everything was going well in my talk with Ray Bradbury up until I told him that I had produced the movie Roswell. And he said, "You did that?" He said, "Paul, why would you lie to everyone that way?" What do you mean, Ray? What do you mean lie? He says, "Well, you know it never happened. There was no flying saucer that crashed in Roswell, extraterrestrials." I said, "Ray, respectfully, have you studied the case? Have you talked to the witnesses? Have you talked to astronauts that I have who know about it, like Gordon Cooper and Edgar Mitchell?" He said, "It didn't happen." He says, "You know how I know it didn't happen?" "How do you know, Ray?" He said, "Because if it had happened, they would have told me. I'm Ray Bradbury. They would have told me. You think they'd keep it a secret from me, who wrote Martian Chronicles?" His sense of self-importance and ego blinded him to the very notion that the government would keep it a secret and even leave him out of the secret. But he was left out of the secret, and so was everybody else. And the fact is, the government has just made some astonishing concessions given their strength of the last 70 years or so. They've now admitted that technological craft doing things in the sky that they can't duplicate, they cannot explain. They're not using the word extraterrestrial. They're just saying, we don't know what it is. Further research is necessary. Well, how much research do you need? Particularly since I'm one of the believers that they've been in contact with alien species for a long, long time. It's all, above top secret. Why do I feel this? Because when I was young and interested in science fiction, I didn't believe that flying saucers were real.
That was my question for you.
No, it was just great fiction. Yeah, wonderful fiction. I saw Earth versus the Flying Saucers.
Me too.
I had an opportunity to see that it was based on a book by Major Kehoe. Did I read the book? No. It didn't resonate with me.
That's it. So
then I had a sighting with my two children.
And let me
undeniable.
Let me just set this up for you to set it up.
Yeah.
Your old home that you and Hollis raised your kids in is in a district, Los Angeles just goes on forever, especially for a New Yorker. And it was, a beautiful craftsman style house. The roof, at one point, the pitch of it was very gradual. You could sit out there or stand out there without fear of, falling off. It was that kind of place.
Right.
And this is 1987, you're a professional, you're a grown-up,
February
UFOs are
25th, which was an anniversary date of what they call the Battle of Los Angeles, when there was that very famous sighting.
Yes, exactly, 1942, January. Now, you are downstairs and you hear your daughter
scream.
What exactly transpired, and what did you see, and how did that change your life?
Well, she screamed at me from upstairs, "Daddy, get upstairs right now. Come upstairs. I see a flying saucer." Well, I was working. I was writing. The Transformers show had come to an end. I think I was working on the script of Starry Night. She'd interrupted me previously that afternoon. I didn't want to be interrupted again. I said, "Jordan, take another look. It's probably a Goodyear blimp. Do you know what a Goodyear blimp looks like? Tell me if it's..." "Daddy, no, it's not a blimp. Get up here right now. It's a flying saucer. Get up here, Daddy." Okay. It was that sharp. And she was 9 years old.
Did you really move fast at that point or stroll up?
At that point, I moved fast.
Okay.
Now, let me mention that morning, surprisingly, there had been snow up on the mountains by Mount Wilson, which you can see from the roof of our house. We have an upper roof deck, and I had been up there early in the morning taking pictures to show the snow, and I had come to the end of a roll of film on my 35 millimeter camera. I hadn't reloaded. The camera was in my office. I didn't take my camera upstairs.
Of course not.
I ran upstairs, not really expecting to see something that would be that extraordinary. She takes me to the window and she points up, and there is a domed disc, flying saucer, a classic, fairly high in the sky, cloud level at that point. And it's starting to descend from those clouds. And we opened her windows and we walked out on the roof. And my son, 6 years old, has come out with us too. And we're standing there holding hands on the roof, looking up at this saucer descending, really, I have to say, towards us, because it came to the point where it was either over the roof of the house across the street or over the road in front of our house. It was, I don't know. Yeah, it was a few hundred feet away. And it hovered there for a while. And when it hovered, it kind of did this, a little instability, a little kind of a wobble sensation.
Undulate, yeah.
Yeah, and then it shot off to the left. Well, I say shot off. It wasn't a fast speed. It moved off to the left. And there was a tree there that had sort of an open area in the branches, and the saucer takes a position so we're still in eye contact with it because it's there behind the hole of the branches in the tree. It's not being blocked. It seemed deliberate there for us to see. Now, I want to say I've always had a hard time with the Billy Meier UFO case in Switzerland. I've had a hard time with it. There's a lot of photos, and I'm not going to say that they're fake. I'm going to say I still don't know.
You're being very kind, Paul, but continue on.
I will tell you one thing.
This looked like that.
I had been asked to do a narrative for a movie that was being made about Billy Meier. It wasn't cutting together well, and they wanted somebody to write a script for it to make sense of it. And I told them at that time, look, I don't want to be involved with a hoax or a fake. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give the Meier book of photos to my special effects friend, Mark D. Wolf, who we've heard about today, and see what he says about it. And Mark said, look, he said, I think they're fake. And he said, I'm going to tell you why. Here's the reason. Turn to that page that has a saucer over a snowy mountain. And there's a lot of bright light coming from the snow. And he said, look at the underside of the craft in that picture. It's absolutely black. It's dead black. He said, now a good special effects man would have known about ambient light from the snow down below. They would have thrown some light up onto the bottom of the craft. They didn't do that. Now, look, before you jump to conclusions, let me just say that while I was looking at the saucer, between the branches of the tree, for about, 20 seconds, a half a minute, the underside of the craft turned absolutely dead black. Now, this was a pewter gray craft, and I'd seen the bottom was gray, but it turned black, dead black, like in that Meier photo. And then it turned gray again, and then it flew off down across the valley. We're up high. We're on the highest hill, and it's lower than us. It flies over these 3 palm trees, and it's heading toward the main section of Highland Park, where there's a 3-story tenement, low-cost housing building that at one time was a schoolhouse. And then it disappears. It's just gone. Like it was never there. I hadn't read books about UFOs at that time. I didn't know other people reported that kind
Sure.
of thing. I'm thinking really logically. I'm thinking, could I have looked away for a fraction of a second and it scooted off real fast to the left, and then it's out of sight but behind some other trees and buildings? But I'm saying to myself, no, I know I didn't look away. I was glued to it. What happened to it? So in the aftermath of this, I started buying books about UFOs and reading them. And I was just voraciously gobbling them down. It was like a kind of a speed reading
Obsession.
had suddenly come to me.
Yep.
I'm reading one book after another, and I suddenly find I'm having like photographic memory for what I'm reading in these books. I can quote back dates. I can quote back witness names. I can quote back what the debunkers said. I'm remembering all these cases, and suddenly, within a couple of months, I feel like I start to have an encyclopedic knowledge of the history of UFOs. Well, in all of the study, I come across, with some help from actor Roy Thinnis, who was the star of The Invaders.
Yep.
It was Robert Wise, the director of The Day the Earth Stood Still.
Yes.
I went to see him in the aftermath of all of this to tell him about my sighting. And he said, Paul, I think, that these things are real. He said, when I was making The Day the Earth Stood Still, he said some people from Washington came, they were on the set. They had, security clearance, and they said, we can't tell you the details, but you don't know how true your movie actually is. And he said ever since then, he believed they were real, but he didn't understand why there was a cover-up. There was no cover-up in The Day the Earth Stood Still. It landed.
Let me jump in for one moment just to remind viewers that Robert Wise has a very special place in American film history. Many of you know him as the director, I believe it's of the first Star Trek film, but he was the director of The Day the Earth Stood Still. And when he was like a young 20-something, he was Orson Welles' editor on Citizen Kane. Yeah. He has, again, a very unique place in American film history, but I wasn't aware of that.
He directed West Side Story.
There you go.
And The Sound of Music. I mean, he was one of the biggest, greatest directors in American history at that time. Yep. And he met with me. And later, when I was making Roswell with director Jeremy Kagan, he met with both of us and, gave us some thoughts about it. But he introduced me to Roy Thinnis, who was the star of a UFO television series.
Sure. In the 60s.
Yeah. In which he played David Vincent, who was a UFO investigator. Well, Roy Thinnis himself became a UFO investigator. He became obsessed. He came to my house, as did Don Schmidt. He introduced me to Don Schmidt. And I walked him through where we saw the saucer and all this. And he brought some books with him. And he said, do you know about the Roswell incident? I said, what's the Roswell incident? All right. This was my first introduction.
The rest is history.
The rest is history. I became, you see, that Summer of the Saucers in 1947.
Yep.
When you read the book by Captain Ed Ruppelt, he was the head of Project
Blue Book. Yeah.
He describes what a lot of witnesses said about the saucers. And many of them said, that they were this like pewter gray color, and that when they hovered, they kind of wobbled as if there was kind of an instability. And that was exactly what I saw like almost 50 years later. So for all the people that said, we build those things, they're our top secret craft, I say, look, were they our secret craft in 1947? Because the way they described it was exactly like what I saw. And by the way, what I saw on February 25th, 1987, was a number of weeks after a very famous sighting up in Alaska. Japan Airlines flight, I don't know,
JAL 1673 or something. Yep.
Yeah, where Captain Terauchi, piloting the plane, reported that he saw a mothership shaped like a cube, 2 times
hamburger almost
battleship
Yep,
with
that's right.
thrusters coming and going to it, flying next to his plane. Well,
Yep.
this was extraordinary, and he was attacked by debunkers.
Oh,
He was
totally.
fired from
And
airlines.
he lost his job
Yeah,
once it
lost his
left
job.
the news. He had
He was-
humiliated
He was
JAL.
ruined by the fact.
Yeah.
But look, this happened off of Fairbanks, Alaska, in November of 1986. My saucer in Los Angeles, February 19.
7.
So, we're talking about a couple of months. If there really was Peter.
Paul, you're
I'm
dropping
back.
out a
Are
bit.
you back? Are you back? Can you hear me? Anyway,
Yes,
what I'm
but
saying
you're-
is my sighting was not too long after that other very, very famous sighting.
Mhm. You had 2 young children with you, a 9-year-old and a 7. How did they react? And these are your children. How did you deal with this as a parent? I think we've momentarily lost Paul. Race. The wonderful world of technology. Okay, we have lost Paul for the moment, but no, he is back. Hooray.
Hooray,
So-
we're back.
Yeah. My question was, you're a parent, you're with 2 young children. You are having to manage and deal with your own feelings, observations, and thoughts. What was going on with them? And how did you, as a parent, respond to their reactions?
Well, they were, amazed, but they hadn't been brainwashed into believing that these things didn't exist. So, I did an interview with each of them afterwards so that they would tell me everything they remembered about it. I had them
Good.
do drawing.
Great.
I wrote notes of everything. All this
So smart.
eventually got to Don Schmidt and the Center for UFO Studies in Chicago, the JL.
Terrific.
And when Don Schmidt came to Los Angeles at the advice of Roy Thinnes to come to my house, had me walk through, he did a drawing from my rooftop of what I saw that became a cover of International UFO Report. And he told me that he and Kevin Randle were beginning a reinvestigation of the Roswell incident, particularly in the aftermath of the MJ-12 document having come out, and all the controversy about that. We can talk about that later. But so he said, we have a 17-page outline for a book. And he said, you're pretty connected in Hollywood. You should make the movie. What I did was I did an option deal with them to tie up the rights to the book that they hadn't even written yet, based on
Good.
the 17 pages.
Smart.
Giving me the rights to hold it for a small cash advance until such time as the book was actually published.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote a first draft of the script, which was not the one that was eventually used. Jeremy Kagan and I wrote a treatment, which was the story approach that was used with the flashbacks in the story to the 1947 military base. I shopped it around and I got a lot of rejections. When I moved houses here and moved to Sedona, I went through a lot of memorabilia and I came across a lot of these letters from famous producers and production companies and networks and studios telling me why they weren't interested in making the movie Roswell. And usually it was, if it had happened, I would have heard of it. A lot of skepticism. Some of them objected to the approach in the script, which took the position that it was real and it had really happened, because the first approach had no skepticism. So I got turned down again and again and again. And then finally, I hooked up with a classmate from the AFI, Jeremy Kagan, who is not only a great soul, he's a great director. And he took an interest in the story when I pitched it to him. He saw it as a very human story with Jesse Marcel as the main
particularly
character.
so.
And so I made a deal with Jeremy that we would team up. We'd be executive producers together, and he had made films for HBO. So he took it to HBO, and then they did a contract with us, and we thought it was going to be an HBO film. They hired Arthur Kopit, who sadly just passed away a number of weeks ago. He's a great, great American playwright. They hired him to do a first draft of the script, and a second draft, and a third, and a fourth. The fifth draft of the script, I was really aboard. I thought, this is really cooking now. Of course, Jeremy and I are given the insight and our approach, but it was Arthur's dialogue. But then HBO wasn't satisfied. They had him go to draft number 6, which was a step back. Then draft number 7 was a step even further back. Then they pushed ideas on him for draft number 8. And now I didn't even recognize the movie anymore. And this is what they approved for production. But mind you, they only approved it for production for around 1 week. They said, you can see if who you could get to be the lead to be Jesse Marcel. So you can put it out to a few actors. And I think the first actor or two we sent it to said no. And then we get called into the head office, and they said, boys, this after a year and a half of script writing. Sorry to break this to you, but we're not going to make your film. We're putting it into turnaround. Now, in Hollywood, that's an expression that means the kiss of death. It means, they dragged you along, they led you along, and now they're not going to make your movie. They're giving it back to you. You can sell it somewhere else, but they're not really giving it back to you for free, because whoever buys it has to pay them back for all the expenses that they put into it. But usually they accept like 50 cents on the dollar.
Okay.
They take less. So
you had the basis of a working script at this point.
Yeah, number 5 was really good. I liked that one. And then one of the producers working with us, Eileen Kahn, said, you know what? I have friends over at Showtime. Maybe Showtime will do it. Let me take, which script should I bring them? I said, number 5. So then over the next 6 weeks or so, I keep getting phone call every couple of weeks from Eileen saying, guess what? Someone else over at Showtime has read it and likes it. So it's been kicked upstairs. And then, hey, they liked it. So it's been kicked up higher upstairs. And finally it gets to the top people and they give it a green light, which means we want to make it. They make a contract with us. The only thing is it's conditional upon who we get to play the lead.
Sure.
Because for Showtime, it had to be somebody with strong name recognition. And Jeremy got the idea to approach Kyle MacLachlan, who was very popular for Twin Peaks. Now, Kyle really liked it, but his manager said, Kyle, don't you make this movie. It'll be the kiss of death for you.
Oh.
He said, they want to make you up to be a 70-year-old man.
Yeah.
True. He plays Jesse in makeup as 70.
Yeah.
He has memories of him, when he's like 40.
It worked.
But his manager tried to kill
him out. Yeah.
And Showtime went back and forth with them and made a deal memo. And Showtime felt they're jerking us around. They said, you know what, guys, here's our last and final offer. You got till Wednesday at close of business, 5:00. If we haven't heard that you've accepted our deal at then, this thing goes away. So at like 5 or 10 minutes to 5:00 on that Wednesday, they get the call that Kyle is going to do it. And then we had a real movie on our hands. We had millions of dollars appropriated for it. And we were told to open production offices within 1 week. It was fabulous.
Let me jump in for a moment to say this film comes out in 1994. We had met a few years before, no contact after that. And I remember seeing it when it came out on television. and being absolutely blown away by it, in part because every period detail was perfect, because the plot carried me along, because it was wonderfully cast, because it had real tension to it, but mostly because I had never seen anything approaching a feature film, even remotely regarding the subject of UFOs, that centered on the incredible damage done to the life of a real person doing their duty, in this case in the military, with a distinguished record up until that point, a person of character who gets caught up in this historic moment and basically has to be sacrificed, goes on to live the rest of his life, quite a number of decades, as a depressive and to a degree an alcoholic. Thank goodness he was found by Stanton Friedman in his 80s, retired in Alabama, able to
Louisiana, Puma, Louisiana,
able to tell his story and get it out there. And you did such justice to it. Before we go on, and we've got a whole bunch of wonderful stills to look at, people can get a sense of the richness and the depth of this. I have a copy of, I don't even know if this was the commercial trailer. This is the almost 5-minute, beautifully edited trailer that is so free of the jump cuts in contemporary trailers that make me crazy today, where you've got 2.5 seconds and an explosion and on to the next. This is the way trailers used to be made. They actually tell you what the story is going to be and they don't ruin it. Let's take a couple of minutes and visit Roswell.
30th reunion of the Army's renowned 509. The Rocket J-bomb is not all the 509 was famous for. For more than 6 hours in July of 1947, the town of Roswell was known as the flying saucer capital of the world. Debris recovered from a crash site in the desert was originally identified by Army intelligence officer Major Jesse Marcel as seen from a flying saucer, much to the embarrassment of the Army, and in particular Major Marcel, shown here holding what turned out to be a piece of aluminum foil.
Could I talk to you a little bit later?
Yeah, you can be at the barbecue, right?
No, I mean alone.
Let it go, Jesse.
Local rancher just brought in a whole lot of, I don't know what you'd call it. Some, top secret.
This thing was big. Let's just suppose Los Alamos or White Sands launched some ultra-experimental plane, rocket, whatever.
Nobody's found anything because nobody's out looking.
And that means this ain't ours.
Hey, Bob, here comes Sheriff Wilcox. See if he can get us in. Open the gate.
No, sir.
What do you mean, no? I'm the sheriff of this here county. I'll go where I damn well please.
We have our orders.
Whose orders?
Colonel Blanchard, sir.
What kind of a goddamn idiot released this nonsense?
No disrespect intended, sir, but if you guys know something that we don't, you should have told us.
We have some reporters coming. We'll show them the debris that the rancher found. You will keep your mouth shut, and I will field all questions. What's this? This is what you found?
No. Sir, this is a weather balloon.
No, this is Warrant Officer Irving Newton, weather officer at Fort Worth. Tell us, what's your opinion?
It's a weather balloon. Quite frankly, I'm a bit surprised that someone with Major Marcel's experience didn't recognize it for what it was.
According to General Ramey, Major Marcel should have realized that what the rancher had found was, in fact, nothing but a weather balloon.
So if I'm the fall guy on this, I want to know what I'm the fall guy for. And I'll be a good soldier. Let me see your report, Sherman.
I don't know what you're talking about.
If it's a weather balloon, tell me how come Brazel's ranch was all cordoned off when we got there? And if it was a weather balloon, how could Marcel not recognize it when the damn things are sent up by the 509 twice a day from that rooftop across the street?
I'm a private goddamn citizen, you understand me? I'll tell you something else. I'm gonna write my congressman. You bet your sweet ass I'm gonna write my congressman. Where's it say thing in the Bill of Rights about kidnapping private citizens off the street, huh? Why don't you show me that amendment? Show me that page number, man. I know what I saw. I held up my goddamn hands.
They said the material was a weather balloon. Well, how in the hell does a weather balloon affect our national security?
Off the record. What's the truth?
I'll tell you the truth. You know how sometimes folks, they talk about little green men? Well, they ain't green.
Come on, Lewis.
Jesse, I can't tell you anything more. The Army has worked very hard to bury this.
And I saw the bodies, too. Bodies. 5 or 6 of them.
That was a monkey with all of its hair singed off, his head swollen up like a melon from decompression. No eyes. They were popped out, leaving nothing but these black holes.
You saw the bodies. You think they were monkeys?
He wasn't alive?
It was alive. What happened here is merely the tip of the iceberg. You see, physicists now speculate that it's unlikely these things fly vast distances from other solar systems. You see, there may not be just one universe.
Like then what did I see out there in that field?
Oh, that. Why, that was a weather balloon.
Now that is a trailer for an extraordinarily good film, Paul.
Thank you. Brings back a lot of memories of making it.
Yeah, I can only imagine. And as a major film geek, aside from being an investigative writer, specializing in the subject of UFOs, I would have loved to have visited that set. And we're going to do so right now in a series of images, and you'll fill us in a bit. The poster. And 2 fine actors. Again, McLaughlin playing the role of Jesse Marcel Sr. and doing it with great respect and real power. And Sheen, basically a composite character, you know, like in Deep Throat, so to say, in the treatment of the film. But both of them working off each other terrifically. And here we have the real Kyle MacLachlan. And I bought the makeup. I didn't have any problem with it. I thought it was very well done.
Martin Sheen.
Yeah. And when I saw in the, the titles coming across the first time, Dwight Yoakam, he's a country singer. Well, some people are damn good natural actors, and you cast him well. Mac Brazel, the ranch foreman, people who know the story know his role in this, and he came off just terrifically too. How were these people? I mean, you were the executive producer, you were on location. How was it to work with them or watch them work with Kagan, the director? I know they're all professionals, but some actors are more difficult to work with than others.
Oh, there was never any difficulty. Everybody was into the spirit of it. Showtime had given us everything we needed to make a really fine period film.
Yeah. We needed Charles Martin Smith, another wonderful actor. I could watch him in anything, and he was perfect for the sheriff.
Yes, absolutely wonderful. We were lucky to have all of these people come aboard, and they all loved working with Jeremy as a director. He's very good with actors. You can look up Jeremy Kagan's credits and see he's done a lot of features, done a lot of TV. He even directed one of the Columbo episodes.
I love it.
With Peter Falk. So this is, the Marcel family is portrayed in the film. Yeah. Jesse and his wife and his son, Jesse Jr.
Yeah.
The real Jesse Jr. died just a couple of years ago. After
he did. And lucky enough to consider him a real friend and a man of character like his dad, for sure.
He wrote a book called The Roswell Legacy. Of course, He was very, very helpful in keeping the real story alive and clarifying.
I agree. You guys, everybody involved, first to be around these wonderful vintage aircraft and the wonderful vehicles that were used in this, every uniform, every wardrobe detail, every sign, letter perfect. And
I'll
that's
say
gotta,
this is the last flying B-29, which
oh no!
released, and it flew up from Texas to film for our movie at the old Van Nuys Airport in Los Angeles.
Oh my God!
Used as the headquarters of the bomb group.
Looks brand new.
Yeah. Oh, you mentioned about how all of the uniforms were just right. Well, Kevin Randall, who is a military man,
you bet,
co-author of the book with Don Schmidt, he checked everybody's uniform, their bar. By the way, Kevin Randall has written a massive number of books.
He said he'd stopped counting at 125 published books. He's been a guest on this show as well.
He's absolutely wonderful. Now, I think one of his books, does a very good job of discrediting the reality of the MJ-12 documents.
I agree to disagree with him on that. I'm at the Stanton Friedman School on that. I believe the original 8-page briefing document, the attached letter from the president to the Secretary of Defense are authentic. The stuff that follows, not so sure.
Okay. Well, I don't know if you've read Kevin's book. It's called Case MJ-12. But I don't think it needs to be real for the information in it to be real. There's been a lot of disinformation out there, a lot of falsehoods, planted to mislead the UFO community. And, someone could copy a real document and then just make a few discoverable.
That's all you need
to discredit. But
enough to discredit it.
Yeah, but Kevin goes into great detail about who the members of the control group that was set up to monitor UFO information nationally and discredit it and debunk it. Who those people would have been, and he agreed that some of the people listed on the MJ-12 document made sense. But there were others that he and some of his sources thought were, more likely to be part of the original group. Anyway, I'm completely convinced the Roswell case happened.
Oh, yes.
As the film describes it. And, whether we've been misled by some documents along the way doesn't matter. We've had so many firsthand witnesses telling us that this is, including witnesses to the bodies.
Yeah,
to the alien bodies.
And
I think the provost head of the debris field is one of the more interesting witnesses for how he tried to avoid talking, but what he said in a way that revealed things, but that he could defend himself against really having been a whistleblower.
Yeah,
and on his deathbed, his children showed him the book by Randall and Schmidt and said, what about this book, Daddy? Is it true? And he said, oh, you want to know about the creatures? That's all he said.
Yeah.
He was dying.
Yeah. And that was handled, I thought, very sensitively. Also, when we get to some stills of the creature, that's a whole nother story. We're talking 1994, and this is animatronic. It's not CGI.
I have it here, actually, in my home office here.
Of course you do.
Of course. I ended up with it. I made sure of that.
In my contract.
Only one alien that we showed that was alive.
Yeah.
The others were all burned to a crisp.
And when I rewatched the film earlier this year, I thought, if you or anybody else was given an opportunity to remake it with a really massive budget and every, Industrial Light and Magic at your beck and call, I can't imagine it being a more human film or tell the story better. You know how it is. Every number of years, certain films are called out to be remade because somebody doesn't have the imagination to create a new film. Every once in a while, they're worthy. At least as often as not, for me, they're not, and somebody shouldn't have even bothered. But I obviously, I'm a fan of this film. And for all of our viewers and listeners, if you have not seen this film, find it and see it. Where can people stream this film from now, Paul?
Right. And that's a good question because, it's been kind of buried. Once the contract for making the DVDs expired after 10 years, DVDs pretty much disappeared. And there was a point where, it had been shown on TV, many, many, many times. So this is a point where it stopped. And the company that owns it had never put it out there for streaming.
That's
online.
crazy.
They never put out the DVDs to be sold at the museum in Roswell. It's almost a deliberate, organized,
or remastered as a Blu-ray. I have a DVD copy here, and it didn't even occur to me that it wasn't streaming somewhere.
No, but you asked where can people see it, and I think if you do a search online, a Google search, and you search for Roswell, the UFO cover-up, and then put in the word movie, you'll find a way to have access to see the whole thing.
And there's MacLachlan, of course, in the most humiliating moment of the life of Jesse Marcel Sr.
And that's without the makeup. He hadn't reported for makeup duty yet.
Interesting. And is this shot in Roswell in the original hangar?
No.
Or is this okay?
No,
this
we didn't shoot in Roswell for a number of reasons I'll explain. But we used the Van Nuys Airport, which goes back to World War II and still.
Well, there you go. The same architecture. Yeah. You've been in the hangar like I have, the one at the old Army Airfield.
Hangar 84 in Roswell. Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
We didn't shoot in we didn't shoot in New Mexico. This is the most famous New Mexico UFO story. We shot in Arizona, using Bisbee, the town of Bisbee, as Roswell in 1947. And the reason was that most of Roswell today does not look at all 1947.
Oh, no, of course not.
It's Denny's, it's McDonald's, it's KFC, it's the hotels, the motels.
Bisbee is still an old Western town in great part from certain angles.
Yeah. Now, Roswell has some buildings that are historic, but as a whole, the town doesn't look at all like it did then. And
it's not a town anymore. It's a city. Small city, but city.
And the airfield has been, it's not been a military base for many, many, many years. I guess it was called Walker Field at one point.
Yep.
So here's...
And two great actors.
Yeah, Martin Sheen with Kyle.
I love that shot.
We got a lot of period cars for the
movie. Boy, I'll say. Okay, here we're coming up to pictures of the being. And is this the one that is currently resides at the International UFO Museum?
Yes, the museum. I arranged for this to be donated as a display for the International UFO Museum and Research Center. So you'll see
that was very kind of you. That really was. A lot of people have appreciated that over the years. Make no mistake about it. And it's installed in a very convincing and rather moving tableau situation behind glass.
Yeah.
And the one that moved, that was something else. It moved enough.
He was being controlled by wires and pulleys.
Right.
Into the adjoining room where a team controlling him was watching him on video screens.
Perfect. Like a marionette.
An interesting point is that he was made with a pigment, a dye or a pigment that responded to ultraviolet light. So when he was alive in the movie, they filmed him under UV light, and he had this certain purplish or glow.
Yeah.
And at the moment that he dies, They killed the UV lights, and now
Yes.
you're just seeing him without that glow,
Yes.
the normal kind of a pale skin tone.
That was very impressive. I had no idea how it was done. And
Today it would be digital. They do it
sure
in a computer, but no,
I love it.
Not in 1994. This was an X-ray created to show what the X-ray of the alien.
Yeah, great detail. And a certain executive producer was cast in a small part.
Yes,
for this film.
That was me. Yours truly. I had a cameo as the autopsy room photographer with that old speed graphic camera and flash.
Yeah, and a very cute nurse, may I add.
Played by Lisa Waltz, who I later cast as the female lead in a movie I made called Starry Night about Van Gogh.
Oh, for goodness sakes, now I'll have to rewatch it. But this is my favorite still here.
Yeah. Very serious. A lot of the UFO magazines at the time picked up a lot of these pictures.
Yeah.
Very serious captions like Paul David says, "Where are the bodies hidden?" Things like
that. Great shot of you guys.
Me in the middle before my hair turned white.
No, I know you. You dye it white because you don't want people to feel awkward that you're aging so slowly.
So, yeah. By the way, can I interject? Because I know that we've only got about 5 more minutes or so.
Yeah.
I would love the opportunity to talk about a couple of my most recent projects that people.
Oh, please. The rest of the time is yours, Paul. Go.
Okay. Well, I took it upon myself to do some children's projects. I have a young granddaughter, who inspired me. And one of those projects, which you can find at Amazon Prime, is called The Grand Kingdom of Cookie Land. And it's in 12 episodes. And the premise is that there are all these characters that are hand puppets. And I'm operating the hand puppets. And I'm doing all the voices, all these different characters, a little bit Muppet-like, in this set that is the imaginary kingdom of Cookie Land. And someone has turned the king and queen of Cookie Land into birds by some evil magic, and they don't know who did it or why. And so there's an investigation, and there's a little girl who's in 5th grade. It's played by Mia Fernald, and she comes to Cookie Land to investigate. She's a child detective, and she has a lie detector machine. This was my inspiration from working on F. Lee Bailey's television show, Lie Detector. She wires the puppets up to her lie detector and tries to get at the truth of, who is guilty. And it's very, very funny to see how the puppets weave and dodge and avoid the questions. So that you can see it's called The Grand Kingdom of Cookie Land. I don't think it's free, but I think it's like, I don't know, $1 an episode or something to see. And it's a lot of fun, and particularly young kids. I'd say anybody from 3 years old to 6th or 7th grade will find it really funny. There's even one show, number 10, called The Cookie Protest, in which the puppets stage a protest objecting to the kind of cookies that are being made in Cookie Land. So here's more. As a writer, back in the 1990s, my wife and I were commissioned to write these Star Wars books for Lucasfilm. This is The Glove of Darth Vader. A lot of kids grew up reading these books. Zorba the Hutt's Revenge. We created the character of Zorba the Hutt, who is the father of Jabba. And this is The Lost City of the Jedi. There were 6 of these books. And they were very, very popular, beautifully publicized by Lucasfilm. So after that experience with writing successful children's books, I teamed up in the last few years with Melanie Joy Bacon, who is an extraordinary illustrator in the Midwest, who had been doing cartoons of some characters she called the Gimwits since her childhood. It was just a natural thing with her. And she sent it to me. She heard me on a radio show and she said, Paul, will you look at, she said, I need stories, I need books, I need help. It needs to become like a franchise. So we have created 4 of these really wonderful books of the Gimwits. And the main character is there on the cover. His name is Globond. And there are flying jewels in the books. This is the second book, Globond's rescue plan. And then we have, it's a series, so it continues the story. This one is Prince Globond Conquers a Curse.
What's the age range that this series is aimed at?
I would say that ideal would be 4th to 7th grade.
Great.
Okay. Maybe 5th and 6th would be the key target. And it was the same with the Star Wars books we wrote. They were called for middle readers. And there's so many wonderful characters, and the books are illustrated. Every other page, has an illustration. We would love to see this become like an animated series. There could be toys and games, and
sure.
It hasn't happened yet, but they're new, and you can find it. First of all, Kindle has them. Amazon Kindle has these books, and if you go to thegimwits.com, you'll find the website. You can access the books there. There's a free game. And Gimwits, you can see, is GIMMWITTS.
And Paul, do you have a website where people can go and learn more about what you're doing?
Yes, my comprehensive website, which deals a lot with me as an artist, because as an oil painter.
Right, and we didn't even get to that here.
I've done hundreds of paintings. Yeah. My website is my name, Paul Davids, and then a hyphen, and then the word artist.com.
Paul?
And you'll see a lot of my paintings there, but there are also sections that have my books, because I've done many, many books.
Excellent.
Not just these. But,
and believe it or not,
we're running out of time.
We are out of time, my friend. Can I entice you to come back? I'm right now working on an idea for a panel of people in the field on film about UFOs, and have a grand time discussing those subjects together with colleagues. Think I can entice you back?
I'll agree to come back if I can name 2 of my books I want your people to look for.
Okay.
Look for An Atheist in Heaven.
Yes.
The ultimate evidence for life after death, which is one of my favorite topics. We didn't get into that. And then Blowing America's Mind, which is a book about LSD, Zen, the CIA, and Princeton. We're
going to have you back as a regular guest as well. This is Peter Robbins, my special guest, Paul Davids. Time has gone too quick. Next week, Saturday marks the 10th anniversary of the passing of the great writer, researcher, investigator, Bud Hopkins. And we will have friends, colleagues, people who worked with him to talk about him, reminisce, and remember him next Monday. If you've enjoyed this show, please tell your friends. See you next week, same time, same station. Stay well, stand up for what you believe in, and be kind to each other.